In college, I thought I had everything figured out. I was a Division I basketball player, doing well in school, and dating someone I believed I'd eventually marry. Life felt like it was on track, and I was untouchable. But looking back now, it's clear how wrong I was. This story is about my girlfriend at the time, Lisa, who betrayed me in ways I never saw coming, and how I let anger and revenge consume me afterward. At this point in my life, I was juggling a lot. Playing college basketball meant I traveled constantly for games, often spending days at a time in different cities and states. On top of that, I was dealing with the beginnings of a serious drug and alcohol problem. What started as partying escalated into a crutch for managing the pressure I felt in sports and school. Later, those same substances became my way of numbing the pain from everything that happened with Lisa. I met Lisa at a party for student athletes. She was a talented track star, beautiful, confident, and driven. She immediately caught my attention. When we started talking, I learned she was technically on a break from her boyfriend, a football player at the same school. It should have been a warning sign, but instead I felt a surge of pride when she left him to date me. To my 20-year-old self, it was proof of my worth, as if I was so great that no one could ever leave me. We started seeing each other constantly, and it wasn't long before we were inseparable. Lisa practically moved into my apartment, even staying there when I was out of town for games. I thought we were in love, and I believed she was the one. In my mind, I'd already decided I'd marry her someday. But under all the infatuation and arrogance, I missed the cracks forming in the relationship. Back then, I was naive enough to think cheating was something that happened to other people. I believed that because I was a good boyfriend, because I stayed loyal, and because I chose the right person, infidelity wasn't something I'd ever have to deal with. That belief was shattered in the most gut-wrenching way imaginable one night, just before my birthday. Lisa and I had been together for almost a year. By then, she was practically living with me. She had her own athlete dorm, but my apartment became her base. I didn't mind. At the time, I loved having her around. Even when I traveled for games 3 to 4 days a week, she stayed there. I trusted her completely. Looking back, there were red flags I should have seen. Lisa was incredibly insecure and went through my phone and computer regularly. At the time, I didn't think much of it because I had nothing to hide. I assumed her behavior was just part of her personality and brushed it off. If anything, I thought her jealousy was cute, a sign she cared about me. That illusion shattered on the weekend of my birthday. I'd planned back-to-back parties, one on Friday for a teammate's birthday and another on Saturday for mine. We went all out the first night, drinking heavily and partying until the early hours of the morning. When we got back to my apartment, Lisa and I had unprotected sex, something that didn't happen often. Lisa used a period tracking app religiously, marking down whenever we had unprotected sex. That night, while she was passed out drunk, I decided to remind her to add it to her calendar. I gently woke her up and told her to log it, but she was so out of it that she handed me her unlocked phone and fell back asleep. I opened the app and immediately noticed something strange. There were all these markers on days I wasn't even in town. Out of curiosity, I tapped on one of the markers and my stomach dropped. It wasn't just a record of her unprotected sex. It included notes with the names of the guys she'd been with. I felt my heart pounding in my chest as I scrolled through her calendar. The app was littered with markers, sometimes 2 in one day. She'd been cheating on me for months, with at least 4 different guys. One of them was her ex-boyfriend, the same one she left to be with me. Another was a random guy I didn't recognize. But the worst part? 2 of them were my teammates, one of whom I considered a close friend. I sat there in shock, flipping through months of evidence that Lisa had meticulously logged. It wasn't just the unprotected sex. It was the sheer number of entries, the fact that she'd kept such detailed notes, and the realization that I'd been completely blind to all of it. In a daze, I put down her phone and walked out of the apartment. I couldn't be there anymore. The betrayal was so overwhelming that I didn't know what to do with myself. My brain was racing with questions and emotions I couldn't process. How could she do this to me? How could I not have seen it? And what the hell was I supposed to do now? As I walked aimlessly through the quiet streets, I got a call from my best friend and roommate, Bono. He's the kind of guy who doesn't mince words, a 7-foot-tall Russian basketball player who's blunt to the point of hilarity. When I told him what I'd just found, he didn't hesitate. "Yo, bitch, you cheated on OP?" I heard him yell in the background after storming into my room. Lisa must have mumbled something in response because Bono cut her off. "Get the fuck out." Minutes later, Bono was back on the phone. "She's gone," he said matter-of-factly. "Come back, we'll talk." I headed home, still in shock, and Bono and I sat down to go over what happened. He didn't sugarcoat anything, but he also didn't try to make me feel better. His advice was simple. "Let's get drunk tonight, forget about her, and find you someone better." That night was my birthday, but instead of celebrating, I drowned myself in alcohol and drugs. A friend had sent me a care package with weed, hash, pills, and coke, and I used all of it to numb the pain. I couldn't stand feeling the way I did, betrayed, humiliated, and stupid for trusting her. By the next morning, my sadness had turned to anger. I wanted revenge. I didn't just want to hurt Lisa, I wanted to ruin her. The morning after my birthday, I woke up still seething. The betrayal Lisa inflicted had shredded my confidence and trust, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. My initial heartbreak hardened into something darker. I didn't just want to move on. I wanted her to feel every ounce of pain she'd caused me. Lisa tried reaching out nonstop. She called, texted, and even begged to come to my birthday party that night. But I made it clear she wasn't welcome. Her desperation wasn't about me or our relationship, it was about protecting her reputation. Lisa's social standing revolved around being with me, and she knew that if she didn't show up at my party, people would start asking questions. I didn't care. I had already decided my next move, revenge. A few days later, while scrolling through Facebook, I saw a profile of one of Lisa's track teammates. That's when it hit me, I wasn't just going to hurt Lisa. I was going to dismantle her world piece by piece, starting with the people closest to her. I began a slow, calculated campaign. First, I started flirting with her teammates on social media. It didn't take long to get their attention. I played the part perfectly, charming, confident, and casual. Within a week, I had hooked up with one of her teammates. Not long after, I moved on to another. Eventually, I'd slept with 3 members of her relay team. Each encounter had a specific goal, to create drama and tension in Lisa's life. 2 of the girls had boyfriends, and when the truth came out, the fallout was massive. Relationships crumbled, friendships shattered, and their coach even got involved to mediate the chaos. Meanwhile, I sat back and reveled in the destruction I'd caused. To make things worse, I started collecting souvenirs from each girl, something small but recognizable like a bra, a track sweatshirt, or a pair of shoes. I planned to use them later to drive the knife deeper into Lisa's back. The chaos wasn't just personal, it affected their team's performance. Their ranking dropped, and their coach, furious at the mess, tried to bring my basketball coaches into the situation. It didn't work. My coaches laughed it off, pointing out that I hadn't broken any rules. The track coach was left fuming, while I kept adding fuel to the fire. I wasn't done. I started flirting with Lisa's classmates and even her married sister. It got so bad that her dad had to step in to stop it. Every move I made was calculated to remind her of what she'd lost and to show her I was everywhere. At one point, Lisa showed up at my apartment, begging for her things back. I saw another opportunity. I packed her belongings into trash bags and mixed in the souvenirs I'd collected from the girls I'd been with, including items I knew she'd recognize. When she called me, sobbing, I coldly told her, "You mixed other guys into our relationship." I just returned the favor. Months later, Lisa returned to school after taking a medical leave for her mental health. I ran into her at the physical therapy center and decided to take my revenge one step further. I pretended I wanted to reconcile, and she cautiously agreed. For a month, I made her jump through hoops: no male friends, no parties, constant access to her phone and location. It wasn't a relationship, it was control. And while she clung to the hope that we could fix things, I was sleeping with someone else the entire time. When she found out, I ended things in a way that mirrored how she'd treated me. "Now you know what it feels like," I told her, walking away. "After everything, you'd think I'd feel satisfied." I had systematically destroyed Lisa's social circle, her relationships, and her mental health. I had turned her world upside down, and she'd lost the confidence and control she once held. But instead of feeling triumphant, I felt hollow. The more revenge I got, the more bitter and empty I became. A few years later, Lisa reached out to me while I was living abroad. I was deep into drugs and alcohol by then, drowning in the chaos I had created in my life. She messaged me, trying to reconnect, and I saw it as another opportunity to hurt her. I told her I was moving back to her city for work and suggested we meet up to see if we could rekindle something. She agreed. I flew in for what she thought was my permanent return, spent 2 days with her, and hooked up a few times. The entire time, I played the role of someone ready to move forward. Then, without a word, I packed my things, flew back to Central America, and blocked her on every platform. It was the final move in my revenge story, and yet again it left me feeling empty. By this point, my life was spiraling out of control. My addiction worsened, my relationships were shallow and transactional, and my bitterness consumed everything. I hadn't just hurt Lisa, I had hurt countless others along the way, including myself. Revenge didn't heal the pain she caused me. It only delayed the inevitable reckoning with my own emotions. Years later, I finally hit rock bottom and got sober. In recovery, I realized that the anger I had carried for so long wasn't just directed at Lisa. It was directed at myself for being naive, for trusting her, and for letting her betrayal destroy me. Through therapy and working a program, I've come to understand that while Lisa's actions were horrible, my response was a choice, and it was the wrong one. Now, I'm happily married to someone who values loyalty and honesty. We've built a life together rooted in trust, and I've finally let go of the anger that fueled me for so long. If I could go back, I'd tell my younger self that revenge doesn't fix anything. It might feel good in the moment, but it leaves you stuck in the pain you're trying to escape. For anyone reading this who's been betrayed, I hope my story serves as a warning. You don't have to let someone else's actions define you. Healing takes time and it's not easy, but it's the only path forward. Revenge might feel satisfying for a moment, but it won't make the hurt go away. Only you can do that by focusing on yourself and letting go of the anger. If you found this story meaningful or insightful, please consider following my channel for more honest reflections and life lessons.